My grandmother was about 14 to 15 years old at the time. She and her friend Regina loved to fool around, and so they passed by an abandoned house in which a witch was believed to live. They couldn't pass by. They really wanted to look into this house, especially since they thought there was no one there. Grandma cautiously approached the house, looked out the window and called her friend over. They started peering through the window, but saw nothing either from the blackness of the walls of the house, or from the fact that no light penetrated there. Regina went to the door and forcefully opened the door. It seems that everyone in the village has heard it. Suddenly everything was quiet. No bird singing, no rustling of leaves, no sound. This anomaly lasted for 5 seconds. They breathed a sigh of relief and entered the house. It was quite cold inside. It was May and dark. Grandma says we have to leave, otherwise we might run into trouble. But Regina insisted that there could be no trouble. There was a stove in the middle of the hut, gray with soot, and on the stove were 2 old black fur coats. For some reason, my grandmother's friend wanted to see what was under the fur coats. She throws back one and the other and sees that a very old and decrepit grandmother was lying under them. The girls were in shock. Suddenly, the grandmother, without opening her eyes, grabs my grandmother's friend. Meanwhile, my grandmother stumbled back and fell over the threshold. The door closed abruptly. A child's cry was heard from the hut. After that, no one saw Regina anymore. My grandmother ran home to tell her parents everything, but when she got home, she remembered that her parents and half the village had gone to plant potatoes. She crawled under the bed and cried softly. At that moment, the door opened abruptly and the same grandmother entered the house. She walked slowly through the house, sniffing the whole time, and she stopped by the bed, under which grandma was. She sniffed and left the house, but my grandmother still stayed under the bed. She was very scared. After Regina's parents returned and asked where their daughter was, she kept saying she didn't know. The next day, the whole village went looking for her, but only my grandmother knew that she was there, in that dilapidated and black hut. And after this story, Grandpa said that it was just a story and made it up himself. The next day, I wanted to see the inside of that hut. I cautiously opened the door and quietly entered the house. As Grandpa told me, there were 2 fur coats lying there. Goosebumps ran over my skin, but I wanted to look under the fur coats even more. Going up to the stove, I carefully lifted one of the fur coats, and at that moment, I saw an old flabby hand. Frozen in horror, he stood like that for 20 seconds. Then he slowly put the fur coat back and quickly ran out of the house. I never went near him again.